We will start adjusting metallic shaders by reworking our external oven element, because when we look at the reference, you can see it's actually quite simple in terms of materials. We have one metallic kind of shader, some chrome elements here, and black glossy here, whereas our model has a bunch of shaders. So let's simplify that. So you can see my simplified model here. I've merged the upper grill part together with the oven, and I also deleted most of the details from the interior except of the main, let's call it cage. And I just used 3 shaders for detailing that object. So the black, glossy black, we already know. The shader that goes on those elements, a newly created chrome shader which is still not configured, as well as metal base shader. So let's now configure the chrome material because it's very simple. All you have to do is increasing the metallic value to 1, specular to 1, which is not necessary, but I prefer doing it, reducing the roughness to, let's say, 0.05 or 75, and decreasing the base color just a little bit to maybe 0.8. Yep, that's basically it. As for the chrome material, let's see how it looks. So that's why you want to avoid having a pure white color here, otherwise it's going to look like a mirror. Same with the roughness. I would actually increase it just a little bit. So yeah, this is our chrome. Let's now set up the base metal material. And to be honest with you, in that scene, that particular material won't be much different from the chrome we've just set up. So let's do it with a live preview. I'm going to increase the metallic value. So you can see we now get this real metallic reflectivity in the material. I'm going to decrease the color to something darker. So let it be 0.65, maybe even darker, 0.55. Yeah, okay, so let's find a middle ground and let it be 0.6. Now I'm going to increase the specularity as well, but maybe not to 100%. Let's leave it at 0.8. And the main factor that's going to determine the look of your metal here will be the roughness. So if we reduce it, again, we are getting something that looks kind of like a chrome, but let's keep it a bit higher, maybe 0.4, as the metal here looks kind of diffused. Maybe that's just a camera angle, but I would prefer keeping it like that. Let's go to our side camera right now and see how the element looks when we zoom in. I'm actually pretty happy with it. I would maybe decrease the color in the end. So let's try 0.5. Let's take 0.55. So that will be it. As for this material, let's now finally move to the fridge we have here. The main thing we have to focus on when working on the fridge element is the very slight bump we can see here. So it distorts the reflections just a little bit. If we simply apply the metallic shader we have just created for the oven, it's not gonna look, well, that good as we would like to. So let's see how it looks by default. Let's also make this shader independent because in our interior it's way definitely too dark. Let's add a 3, increase the color to 0.8, I would suggest, maybe 0.7. And yeah, let's reduce the roughness drastically to maybe 0.15. And you can see, yeah, this fridge is a pretty big surface in our rendering, so we would like to add a little bit more of finesse to that shader so it doesn't just look plain and simple like we have right now. Let's compare it to the reference once more. You can see there is still a little bit more reflectivity in that material, so let's maybe reduce the roughness to 0.1 and increase the color back to 0.8, I think. In order to create a bump mapping, we need to add a few more nodes. So let's start with a noise texture. I'm going to leave it here. And again, we need a vector bump, which will be the input for normal. Let's now plug the FAC output into the height. And now let's add a texture mapping and choose the generated input here. If we turn on the render preview, the effect will look like that. So it's definitely not something we're looking for. The first thing we need to fix is the strength of the effect itself. So let's reduce it to 0.02. Let's also decrease the strength to 0.5 and look back at the reference. So the reflections, the distortion is very, very slight. And that's why we would need to work on the texture just a little bit. So if we decrease the scale to, let's say, 1, you might think there is nothing visible in the reflections. But if we just bump the values slightly and enlarge the entire element, you can see, I think it's a bit too much. Maybe let's keep it to 1.25 only. And let's try rotating the camera around the object in the viewport to see if we have any distortion. Yeah, maybe that's just a bit too low. So let's keep it at 1.5. And I think we still could reduce the roughness actually. So let's increase it to 1.5 as well. And yeah, I would say as for now, that's kind of enough. Maybe the shader is still a bit too bright, so let's go down to 0.75 and check it again. Let's switch to another camera actually and compare it with the reference. So yeah, maybe it's still a bit too dark. Sorry if you think I'm just trying to guess the values, but what I'm showing you right now, it's actually how a daily bread of architectural visualizer looks like sometimes. So you have to simply go back and forth with some of the materials, some of the elements, until you get the result you're simply looking for. So from one angle, these elements look correctly, from another one it doesn't. We still have to play around with it. I would say let's leave it with those settings we have right now. In the next video, we will move the camera around. We will look for the final setup. We will render, and then we will also fine-tune the materials. I will apply the same shader or slightly modified version of it to those kitchen appliances here, because as you can see by default the bump here is a little bit too big. The reason for that is we created, again, the shaders were created for Blender 2.79, so we will still have to adjust them for the new Blender in the upcoming days. But yeah, as for now, let's now move to the part of this chapter where we are gonna fine-tune everything around our scene and prepare for rendering in the next chapter. Thank you for watching.
Thank you guys for watching. This video is part of my interior visualization course in Blender, which you can watch for free on YouTube. All the necessary details and link to the full playlist can be found in the video description. If you want to support what I do and access all of the 3D files used in this course, plus Blender-ready interior setups and over 2,000 Blender-exclusive 3D models, just visit the chocofur store and learn more about our subscription plans. Again, thanks for watching, and I see you soon.